Hello and welcome to today's video. This is a chatty video with a bunch of B-roll, no nail polish. I want to finally talk about the nature of my channel. I post nail polish and backyard wild animals. I feel like I need to explain myself because this isn't normal. I will start by saying we didn't always have chipmunks. There were several outdoor cats that our neighbors owned that drove the chipmunks away or killed them. Because of the passage of time, those cats have grown old and died, and now the chipmunks are somewhat safe. That being said, I used to have a cat. She was an indoor-only rescue cat. I mentioned that she was a rescue because one of her former owners had all of her paws declawed. Because of that, I knew she couldn't really be outside. But also, she in particular was a ditz, so I didn't trust her outside anyway. Cute, but kinda dumb and uncoordinated. She was a medium-haired orange tabby. She had quite the personality. She loved everyone. I have lots of stories about her, so if you want to hear them, just let me know. Sometimes, if I was going to be outside, I'd put her in a harness and stake her leash into the ground. I had a really big corkscrew I could put into the lawn, and about a 5-meter leash I could attach to her harness. She was never out there without me, so I knew she was safe. If she seemed upset or hot, I could just take her back inside. Mostly, she just walked around sniffing and batting at any grasshoppers she saw. We started feeding the squirrels to draw them to the deck so the cat could watch them from inside. We called it cat TV. We would put food outside in a bowl so the cat could watch them, but the squirrels were also safe. And it was the squirrels we were first feeding. My cat had a real name, but in truth, we called her Putty. She did die, but please don't be sad. She was 21. She had a good long life, most of it with me. I got her when she was around 4, old enough to have mellowed from kittenhood, but not elderly. After she died, we just kept feeding the squirrels and birds, and eventually chipmunks began to show up. I also feed the hummingbirds, but they have been very shy this year, so I don't have any footage of them. I have been seeing them a lot this week, so I think they're gearing up to head south. Usually, they come to the feeder to stuff themselves directly before migrating. I'll stop seeing them in September. I keep the feeder out until the flowers die, just in case of stragglers. This didn't really become a serious pastime until one of the chipmunks adopted us. And yes, she made the decisions. Her name was Stumpy. She had a shortened tail and was also extremely interested in us. She would come to watch me weed the garden and play inside my paper yard waste bag. Then she would sit on top of it to survey if other chipmunks were in her territory. She would come to see us with a big pregnant belly and always bring her babies to see us when they emerge from the den. Most of the chipmunks you see on my channel are her children or her grandchildren. She also decided she liked being inside the house. She got in several times to steal peanuts. One of her babies tried the same trick, but it panicked and ran through the house. As you might guess from how I'm talking about her, Stumpy is no more. She didn't return this spring. We saw her in the fall before the hibernation, but she just never reemerged. She was about 5 years old. We also lost our oldest male chipmunk, which we had named Van Gogh, because he had a broken ear, of course. If you are angry at my pronunciation of that name, I know it isn't said that way, but I'm afraid no one will know what I'm talking about if I say it the correct way. And I'm also concerned about the kinds of mouth sounds I will be making into a microphone. Van Gogh didn't return this spring either. We also lost our oldest female squirrel, who happened to be one of the black ones. We had named her Mama Moobies. She would come to the door and peek around the corner and look inside and wait patiently for her peanuts. She didn't return this spring. We also had a massive gray squirrel that I called Monsieur Pantaloons because he would molt his front half first, leaving what looked like furry pants on the bottom half. I haven't seen him this year either. I think it was honestly the sadness of losing all of them that made me post the new critters on the channel. Some aren't so new, like the strange squirrel and his short ears, but I didn't often see him come to our yard because of territorial disputes. The female red squirrel really only comes when she's nursing. So if it seems like I haven't really named them or I don't know them all well, I don't. Mama Moobies and Stumpy kept a lot of the other animals away so they had a secure source of food. I suspect by next spring we'll know them a little better. Oliver is new this year and seems quite interested in us. His sibling initially seemed the same, but since has decided that she does not like us. She runs into a tree and begins yelling at me when I go outside. I can't win them all. In regards to their names, squirrels and chipmunks are hard to gender in the first year. Over the winter, the males will develop what I will call two round fuzzy protrusions by their back end. I don't know what YouTube will censor, so I'm just being careful. In the first year, you would need to be able to see their undersides to tell, and we don't get that close. So Oliver may turn out to be a girl, only time will tell. I don't rename them. They just end up with incongruous names. I'll see who becomes our new dominant chipmunk and squirrel in the spring. When I talked about making a YouTube channel, I told my husband it would be all nail polish. But he said I should film the chipmunks. I was a bit resistant because I was worried about capturing anything interesting. And the consistency. I'll explain the problem with consistency in a second, but I did agree that I could make chipmunk shorts rather than full videos. Chipmunks are very fast moving, and I didn't think I would get enough to film more than 30 seconds. And that is how we ended up here. I also found that sometimes I'd forget to film the chipmunks in vertical, so I stuck those horizontal clips at the end of my nail polish videos, because the footage was just too cute to waste. Circling back to consistency, squirrels and chipmunks are seasonal. In winter, the chipmunks are in their burrows eating and sleeping. They just aren't present on the surface. The squirrels are intermittent. They will do mini sleeps for a week or two in nests they make high up in trees, and pop back out to dig up their buried goodies from the summer. So I do see the squirrels here and there. In winter, we mostly have birds, and birds are much more skittish and will not like me being at the door. I've been taking extra footage during the summer that I'm saving for winter, but we'll see what happens. I do have a little camera stand with a remote trigger, so I might be able to set that up outside and just close the door. I'm hoping that will make the birds feel a little safer. Because they are wild animals, I do have some chipmunk rules. I guess from a person who made 2 full videos of nail rules, this probably isn't a surprise. I don't try to touch or pet them. This is for everyone's safety. When they jump on me, when gardening, I don't try to pet, hold, or restrain them in any way. If they jump onto me, they've done so of their own free will, and I let them leave in their own time as well. And yes, chipmunks are very bold and will absolutely use you as a watch post. For some chipmunks, I don't need to worry. We have one chipmunk who I call Pointy Face Skinny Tail, another child of Stumpy, who would sit in a tree and watch me. He felt I was a threat. I used to call him Supervisor 1 as well, because it seemed like he was judging my unsatisfactory yard work. I think the animals like our yard, but not just because of the food. The food is usually gobbled up in an hour or two because I only distribute a set amount. You would think they'd just disperse when the food was gone, but they stick around to hang out. I find the squirrels out there splooting all the time. I don't have a traditional yard with grass. I replaced the grass with herbs and plants that don't need to be mowed. They're less dependent on watering as well. I don't use pesticides or herbicides. I just weed the lawn by hand. The first few years of the change in plants meant long hours of weeding to allow the new ones to establish themselves. Now that the creeping jenny, mint, and thyme, the hostas are spreading nicely, the weeding is usually just twice a year for a few hours. I do have a potato patch this year as well. I'll probably go out in the fall when it cools down a little and do one last weeding before the snow. I think the animals like the change. The one animal that seems to like it less is the robin, who shows up in spring to eat the fermented crab apples and pull a few worms out of the bare earth, but then they leave again. I think they prefer a traditional lawn, as far as I can tell. The rabbits are not as happy with me this year because I forgot to plant clover for them. I'll fix that next year. So, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into the state of our yard animals and why they are on the channel as well. I feel they are rambunctious and adorable, and they might bring other people a little bit of joy. That's how I feel about them. I don't have an extra animal clip for today since this is a bit more of an oops, all animals sort of video in the first place. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.